Okay, how's it going today? So what I'm going to do today is just show you how to install the FoosFit devices onto the table. I actually have them installed right now. I'm going to actually work backwards so you can kind of see how things look when they are installed, so that way when we actually put them back on the table, it kind of gives you a better reference. So right behind me here, I've got my camera set up. I'm going to switch views. You won't see me anymore, but you're just going to see the table, and we're going to work from there. All right, here we go. So, I'm going to actually stand up here. You're going to probably see a little bit of me there. The first things first is, as you can see how this string is on the bottom? And it's on the bottom here. So, let me get it over here. What I mean by that is it's going around underneath the spindle here. If you have your device and you put it on the table and your strings are coming off the top, then you have it wrong. So, for instance, the back pulley that's connected to the rod here, where it's connected to the handle, that's the one that's coming on. You can't really get it wrong unless you were to untwist the strings off the device. And it's important that you leave them like this because all the software, it understands when it's going in or out or in or whatever. It needs to know which direction that is. So if you do it opposite way, if you unravel the strings and put them the wrong way, you may get some weird effects. But let me just show you something real quick. I'm just going to take that off of there, and I'll show you how I did that in a second. But when you get these, now there's a few different designs that have been done over the last couple of years, and so the one you have may be slightly different. And I believe Brian actually has another design that's it's basically been redesigned a few times because we've noticed little things like where the pressure points are and stuff. So we've had to redesign the hinges and just different things to make them a little more durable and reprint them in different directions. It helps the strength of them. So, but anyway, if you'll notice there's like a little rubber piece here. Now the rubber, sometimes you'll see that it's like slipped into a little groove. It doesn't need to be. So if it comes like this, where it's just kind of loose, you'll be fine. But so you have like a bicycle clamp here, and you'll have an insert inside of here. Okay. Now this thing is locked in there pretty tight. Like some of them you could pull out, but this one actually is in pretty tight. So technically it does come out though, this little insert. So if this was to break or something, you could pop this out, stick a new one in there. Or if the clamp broke and we sent you a new one or something like that. But the idea is you're just going to take this thing and you have to loosen it pretty far to get it to slip past this little, there's a little lever here. So, and I'll put it this way so you can see, it's got a little lever and it's got to slip past this little thing here. So now what I do is I just go up underneath there and I get the rubber kind of all lined up and just simply push it. And then I start tightening the screw here. So, show it here. And once I get the screw just kind of touching where it's kind of holding it like that, just be careful because this lever here, it gives you a lot of strength. And if you put this thing too tight and then you crank this lever, you're just going to put a whole lot of strain on the bottom of this thing and you're going to end up breaking it. So what I always tell people is, if you have to push this thing really hard to get it to stay, then you've probably got it too hard. But I usually loosen it up. So I like to do like this and see it's really easy right now. And maybe I'll go like just a half turn or less, quarter turn. And to be honest, it doesn't need to be any tighter because with the rubber in there, you can see it's locked on really tight. Now, occasionally, you'll be like, you know what? I noticed it may have moved a hair or it's sliding or something. Okay, fine. Give it a little bitty turn, lock it back on, right? Now, this clamp, you can go on the up like this, or you can go down, right? So you can loosen it, turn it downward and go. Now, I'll go down on the outer ones here, but on the ones inside the table, I like to have them in the up position because these things will be kind of low to the table, and just it generally is not going to hurt anything, but it just makes me feel better. So now, once you lock that on, you're pretty much going to do the same thing over here. This, just remember though, if you have a grip on the table or something, this thing needs to be snug right against the wood here, okay? Because when the device goes in, it's going to be very, very close to the edge of the device itself, okay? We call these the risers. So when the riser goes in and it goes to it's going to almost literally touch. So if you don't have this thing right against there, then you are going to touch, okay? So what I do is I'm going to show you something here. So I have these little pads. These pads, because if you just put this on there and you tighten it, it's plastic against plastic, right, basically. So this is perfect because you just set it on top there, slide your device right over it, and it makes it nice and snug. Now, I line up the center of the spindle with the center of the rod, okay? And that's pretty much the perfect position. And then this thing right here, it's just snug, make sure it's down good. And I just snug it like that. I mean, don't crank it down. It doesn't need all that. Just turn it till it stops and maybe give it a little snug like that, and it's on there pretty tight. Okay? Now, so then the string, I usually work from the inside out, so I'll usually put this string on first, this one here, because it's the inside spindle, which is harder to get to with this string in the way. So it just makes it easier for me. Now, as you can see, like right now, I have the string. I'll unwrap it a couple times, and I want it to be longer than this thing. And I'll spin this thing. It's going to go in there like this little locking mechanism here. I'm going to spin it clockwise around the spindle right at the edge here, right at the bottom. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to stick it into the slot here. Now, you may have to turn this thing a little bit to get it to go all the way down. You see that? And then you're going to lock it clockwise. So it's locked in there. It can't come out. If you turn it back that way, then you can rock it out of there, right? So at this point, you lock it in there. The string is not too tight, right? You'll do the same thing with the inner one. You're going to put the riser on there, and you're going to put the string. Now, once you notice, you see this? It's loose, right? This is a point of contention for a lot of people because they don't know how tight the string should be. Should it be really loose, really tight? Well, what I tell people is this. If your device is running back and forth and your thing's wobbling all over the place like that, it's probably too loose, okay? But at the same time, you don't want to crank these things down so far that that you're putting a super amount of stress on the string, and then you're pulling these things really hard. It's just unnecessary. So what I tell people is, what you're going to do is give it one little crank. Boom. It's like a little ratchet there. And you can see now, you see how the string's pretty, like kind of taut. And then it just doesn't rock very much. Just a little bit right there. And then when it goes back and forth, it's going to be nice and smooth. Now, if you put the string too loose, what's going to happen is that certain modes, like playback mode, it's very, very precise. Like it knows exactly where it's at, here, here, here. And when the string is really loose, it's going to cause it to shift and kind of, because the string's going to be like bouncing and stretching back and forth. What you're going to notice as well is if you wrap the string around the spindle and didn't really pay attention, the first few times you use it and it starts going back and forth really quick, you may just notice that the string got a little loose. Because what it's doing is it's tightening itself inside the spindle. It's really pulling itself taut. So you may, after using it for like a couple of minutes, have to just maybe crank just one or the other down. You can just do this one or the other one. Then kind of go back and forth. It'll kind of smooth itself out. And it'll be good. Usually, once I have the devices on the table for a while, and I've already tightened the string, once or twice to get it perfect, I rarely ever have to mess with it. I mean, I'll run these things for hours and hours and never have to tighten the string again. So once everything kind of pulls tight in the spindle and you get this adjusted good, and this is against here, you'll be good. Now, I will say that if you're using a mode where you're super aggressive and it's jumping back and forth like this, these things, depending on how tight you put them, it could maybe move just a hair. It doesn't take much to make the string feel loose. I usually sometimes I'll just kind of make sure this one's against there, and then I'll loosen this one, and I'll kind of just give it a little rock like this back, right there. I'll hold the handle at the same time. I'm just rocking it, and then I'll just go like that. And that little bit will make a difference, because what happens is the string kind of feels tight, but you're not sure. And then if you crank it, it's like too much, right? Because the tick is like a good decent amount, and you don't want to crank these things too tight. So I found the alternative is to just flip this back, just kind of twist it just a little bit, get it kind of pull. I'm basically pulling that way, and then boom, and then that's it, right? And you're good to go. Now, these risers should be both straight up like this. If you want the man pointed forward, just put the man forward where you want it, and then put the risers. Make sure both risers are kind of even, because what's happening is, if you don't, when the string's going back and forth, it's going to make the string want to kind of go inside of the spindle there, one side to the other, and then you're going to get like little ticks sometimes because the string will get caught. So by keeping these risers the same, both of the strings are kind of going in and out the same, and you'll get just a quieter, smoother feel. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Just don't forget, the string must be wrapped around the spindle and come out the bottom. If it's wrapped around and you put the string, wrap it over on the top there like that, then it's wrong. And it's not going to work, because then you're going to be backwards. When the device thinks it's going this way, counterclockwise, pulling the rod out, it's actually going to be the opposite, pushing it in. So all of the software will be confused and be like, what's going on here? So that's all I wanted to say. Good luck, and get foosing.